I'm looking at your biography, and it reads like one of the most impressive resumes I've ever seen. What inspired you initially to get into international? Do you call it politics? International communications, and I mean, you're first and foremost, you're the first woman to hold the role you hold today.
Yeah, that's true. I am the 28th French ambassador to Canada, and I am the first woman. So that's mean that I had 27 predecessors, male predecessors, and I think it was just about time to appoint a woman.
And I'd like to take you back just before this appointment. Was it from 2014 to 2017? You were serving as director for the Americas and the Caribbean, and then also the senior officer for gender equality with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And you sit on the High Council for Equality between men and women. This is important to you.
Yeah, that was a very interesting job. I think there's a lot to do about women, about breaking the glass ceiling. So we are making improvements, but we are not where we should be.
But you're a role model to inspire those.
I'm not sure I'm a role model because, but honestly, I think that there's a lot to do because when you look, for example, at companies, when you look at the tech, when you look within financial institutions, where are the women? Next week, I am going to Montreal and I will give a conference on a business conference on CETA. And there are very, very few women on those subjects. And I'm still wondering why. When you look at the schools, I mean, the girls are very good students. They are doing fine. And why is it that at one point they're missing?
They're not finding their way into these roles. And that's something I think having yourself being open to do an interview such as this, somebody might be listening and say, maybe me, maybe I can. You did say that you're going to be speaking about CETA, and prior to when you arrived here with your group, I said to you, I don't know enough about trade deals globally, and I'm thinking that perhaps my listener is with me on this. We see the headlines; they're rather inflammatory. We should be quote unquote worried about NAFTA. We should be worried about TPP. We should be worried. Give us a little bit of an education, if you will, about CETA.
Well, first, I think that free trade is not a bad word. I know that lots of politicians use free trade agreements and globalization to explain why everything is not fine, why there are lack of jobs, and especially in Europe, lots of governments have been using, free trade as a devil to explain what was not working in the countries. And you have seen, and especially during the French campaign, the French election presidential campaign, this populism was growing everywhere, and not only in France, but in UK, in different countries. And I think the world is transforming at a very, very, very fast. And people are losing all their repères, and they are worried because they cannot follow what's happening. So when you see so much products like made in China, so how do you react to this globalization? People are worried, they are concerned, and we need to address these concerns. But in my opinion, and CETA is the perfect agreement. It's a good agreement. It's a way to I think we have to prove to people that it's going to be a beneficial agreement for everybody, for Canadian people, for European people, because companies will be able to export more easily. You will be able to apply to public market procurement. it will be much more easier to send people to work. So there's a lot to gain from that. And before coming to this radio station, I was visiting the company Hurricane Zodiac. And they explained me how the agreement was beneficial because they have some unit production in Europe and in Canada. And they work a lot in Canada. They provide jobs, but they need to export and import from Europe and to Europe. And because there will be no more tariffs, they become so more competitive.
We're talking about the Canadian-European Trade Agreement with Her Excellency, the French Ambassador to Canada, Karine Rispal, and that exactly simplifies it to the point where we can understand the movement of goods and services, workers being able to go where the products need to be either created or constructed or moved between one place and another in a way that doesn't exponentially add cost, so that the end cost is out of a price range that could so simply be undercut by another country that is going to pay a lower wage and perhaps make it under questionable circumstances and whatnot. It's an ethical move that Canada and Europe be connected in this way. When you were referencing the worries about free trade and it becoming a bad word, were you referencing Brexit or NAFTA? With where it got the bad rap?
Well, I'm not sure it's NAFTA in itself. I think NAFTA is a good agreement.
No, I meant the words around it.
Yeah, I mean, that the words around it, absolutely. But one other thing about CETA is that CETA provides very responsible rules about environment, about social rules. So it's a very responsible thing between Europe and Canada. It's just not free trade for free trade.
Let's expand on that. I think that's an important piece. It matters to us, particularly here in Western Canada, not to put down those to the east, but it's a little bit more industrial. We're a little bit more mindful and green here. So we like to hear that that is a part of this puzzle. And certainly President Macron has been specific to this.
Yes, President Macron has been specific. And at the time when we discussed the CETA, it was a long time ago because the discussion began 10 years ago. And when the CETA was signed, at the time, we were not that much into the climate thing. Mm-hmm. And for us, climate thing and the fight against climate change is really core. A few days ago, there was in Paris a summit, the One Planet Summit, and it was a way to reaffirm that the environment is important. It's really about our future. And even if some big players and big polluters like the United States have decided to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, we still need to work on that. We still need to have as many people as we can around the table. And what was interesting during this summit, it's not just about governments. It's about civil society. How we have everyone on board, companies, government, province, states. How can we work all together for our future?
And that's one thing that struck me with a European background. I visit Europe, and I remember going to Germany, has to be 25 years ago now. And the idea of putting clothing in a dryer, completely lost on my German family and friends. They don't have dryers. What a waste of energy. You hang your clothes. And we've become, so reliant on the quick fixes and the consumerism and the disposability of our things. We all need to be more mindful of that, both in how we consume, but also how goods and services are created and transported. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's why in the CETA, we are trying to work on the fact that when you transport goods, you need to have boats, to have planes, and that, in theory, and that emits CO2. So that's an area where we decided that France and Canada will work specifically on that issue, how together we are able to lower the CO2 emissions when we transport goods.
We are with Her Excellency, the French Ambassador to Canada, Karine Rispal. We're talking about CETA, the Canadian-European Trade Agreement, among other things. You're speaking in Vancouver. Are you doing a keynote speech here?
Here in Vancouver?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
tomorrow I'm going to speak to students at Simon Fraser University and to talk about France, how France is in a transforming mood, what's going on, and we don't belong anymore to the old world like often we are described. There's a lot of reforms going on in France, especially on the economic side. And Emmanuel Macron has a very strong vision of the world, of how it should work. And he's very aware that we have some very specific threats. And the best way to address all those threats is to work together.
And from our perspective, all this distance from France, I can say that it appears that the French government, from our perspective, is very progressive and very engaged and leading in a way that some others who we perhaps might have looked to for key leadership are not today.
Yeah, but you have to realize that, for example, in Europe, there is this context, this very special context where you have the Brexit. The German Angela Merkel leader had some difficulties to find a coalition, but I heard that finally she succeeds, so she will be back on track. And for France, working together with Germany is key, especially within the European framework. And Europe is key to us because that's the only way to be stronger.
It's a way to make the connection and build at a time where uncertainty seemed to have taken over for the last year. We very much appreciate your perspective in coming in today. This has gone far too fast for me.
For me too.
Much appreciated. Her Excellency, the French Ambassador to Canada, Karine Rispal, again, going to be doing a keynote speech at, you said Simon Fraser University?
Yeah.
You lucky, lucky students. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.